So as we said at the header, this particular video is about the beginning of our life, of birth, and what we call love consciousness. So have you observed that a newborn baby is actually completely fearless? Doesn't have any fear. It's got two fear reflexes. The loud noise, it has a reflex, and the fear of falling, or the reflex of falling. It has a reflex. When you drop the baby like that, it kind of does that. They're just reflexes. It's actually fearless. If you hold a baby over a big height, it looks down and goes, doesn't say anything. It hears a big noise, it kind of gets startled and then goes, wonder what that is. Why does that happen? Why is the baby fearless? So let me give you a way of looking at the human being and the birth of a human being, and perhaps getting some sense on why that is and what happens when we are born that way, and what happens to us as we go on. So first, let's start with when we are born. So when you're born, a human being, the consciousness that makes up that being is what's called love consciousness, or the consciousness of the universe. That little being that appears on this earth is at that moment completely and absolutely connected to everything there is. He cannot actually distinguish anything. He cannot say, well, that's my parents and that's my brother or my sister. What he can see is that every being, everything that it encounters in front is part of it. It is not threatened by anything. So we call this particular phase when love consciousness appears. So imagine that this is the consciousness of the universe, this whole thing. Yeah? I know it's not a great representation, but let's imagine. So love consciousness, some people call this reality consciousness because it is real. And that is what comes on this earth, and this baby turns up. And as the baby turns up here and creates love consciousness, or the love consciousness turns up within the baby, what it also does is to create a mind. We call this mind the higher mind. And its main purpose is it is a vehicle for the consciousness to interact with these particular dimensions that we live in. It gives a space for this overall consciousness to create an interaction, to receive and to give. So, according to some of the ancient teachings, there were particular purposes of the higher mind, and they were to learn, they were to grow your consciousness, grow and expand. They were to express what is within you, and they were to experience life. Experience, to getting to know what is unknown. That's what it was. Think about it. People use this thing and say, there is a higher part of us. Or they say something like, there's a Christ mind. That is what they describe when they talk about that. All great teachers, all great people who created wonderful philosophies which in some instances became religions, like Jesus Christ, like Muhammad, or Krishnamurti, or Prince Siddhartha, or the Buddha. They all spoke of this space. They all spoke of this in different ways. They described it in different ways. They call this God mind. They call it God consciousness. They call this the absence of everything, because all things and nothing comes here. The higher mind they expressed as the mind that is the connection, the stillness, and the connection between the vastness of the universe and the plane and our life that we live in here. That's essentially what it is. I would ask you not to get too caught up in trying to analyze this in detail and going through these bits and trying to find out all that. Because what I'd like to do is to ask you to experience it. Because once you experience it, you'll create your own truth. You'll discover whether this makes sense to you, whether it's real to you, or whether this is not. So this is essentially the starting point in life. And then something happens, and something else happens, and life now starts migrating upwards. And as we grow, there are interesting dimensions that are created within ourselves that allow us to experience life in a far greater variety of possibilities than would have been if we only had love consciousness and the higher mind. So this is the starting point. A pure, perfect little baby that comes here on this earth to learn, to grow and expand, to express itself and to experience the unknown. Simple. Very deep and complicated, but it's simple if you keep it like that. So have a think about it. Go back and reflect a bit and see. If you've got a chance to look at a baby the next time you see a brand newborn baby, especially hopefully one whose eyes have just opened up and is able to see, observe, connect with the baby, keep the baby in front of you, unfocus your eyes so that you can let yourself see both eyes of the baby. Because when you normally look at a baby at its eyes, you only focus on one eye. Unfocus it so you can see both eyes. And stay still for a few minutes. Watch what a remarkable thing will happen to you. You will have something happen. You'll feel it. You'll know it. Don't go to analyze it. Don't go to work it out. Don't go to figure it out. Just be with it. That will be your experience of love consciousness. See what it feels like. See what your mind makes of it. So this is our starting point. Okay? So we're going to move on to the next stage. What happens next? That's the next part. What happens next?